The Gilded Age just confirmed something fans have been dreading since the Season 3 finale. Bertha and George Russell's marriage is about to be tested in ways it has never faced before. And this time, there may be no coming back. While the official synopsis for Season 4 focuses heavily on Bertha's rise and Agnes Van Ryn's fight to reclaim her family's influence, a closer look at the returning cast reveals something even bigger brewing underneath the surface. Harry Richardson, who plays Larry Russell, and Tessa Farmiga, who plays Gladys Russell, are both confirmed to return for Season 4, and their storylines could end up deciding whether their parents' marriage survives at all. Because in the world of the Gilded Age, the children are never just background characters. They are the consequences of every decision Bertha and George have made. And now those consequences are about to catch up with the entire Russell family at once for 3 seasons. The Gilded Age has built its entire foundation on one simple idea: money can buy almost anything except respect. And respect is the one thing Bertha Russell has been chasing since the very first episode. She married George, built a mansion that could rival any old money family in New York, threw parties that forced the city's most powerful people to notice her, and slowly clawed her way into a social circle that never wanted her there in the first place. But every single one of those victories came with a price, and by the end of Season 3, that price finally caught up with her marriage. George and Bertha's relationship reached a breaking point that fans did not expect, and for a while, it genuinely looked like divorce was on the table. Now, with Season 4 officially confirmed and the first synopsis released, it looks like that storyline is not going away. If anything, it is about to get far more complicated. And Larry and Gladys Russell are going to be caught right in the middle of it. Harry Richardson's character, Larry Russell, has spent the last 3 seasons quietly becoming one of the most important pieces of the Russell family's future. He is not as loud as his mother or as calculating as his father, but he has slowly proven that he understands the game of society just as well as they do. Larry has been building his own path in architecture, trying to establish himself as more than just George Russell's son. And that matters a lot going into Season 4, because if Bertha and George's marriage really does start falling apart, Larry is going to be the one person who has to figure out how to hold the family name together while his parents are busy fighting for their own survival. His storyline this season could easily become one of quiet stability in a family that is anything but stable. And that contrast alone could make him one of the most important characters to watch. Then there is Tessa Farmiga's Gladys Russell, whose entire arc has always been about control, or more specifically, the lack of it. Bertha has spent years shaping Gladys's life the way she shapes everything else, deciding who she should marry, how she should behave, and what role she should play in New York society. Gladys finally pushed back last season by choosing her own path, but that decision came with real consequences for her relationship with her mother. Season 4 seems ready to explore exactly what happens when a daughter who fought so hard for independence has to watch her parents' marriage fall apart in front of her. If Bertha starts losing her grip on George, it is very possible she tightens her grip on Gladys instead. And that could reignite a conflict between mother and daughter that never fully healed. What makes this even more interesting is the timing of everything HBO has confirmed so far. The official synopsis makes it clear that Bertha may have transformed society, but she paid a heavy price to do it, and the entire Russell family now has to live with the consequences of her ambition. That single line changes how we should be looking at Larry and Gladys going into Season 4. They are not just supporting characters anymore. They are living proof of what Bertha's ambition has cost the people around her, and their reactions to their parents' crumbling marriage could end up defining the entire season. Larry might try to become the peacemaker, the one person trying to keep the family from falling apart completely. Gladys, on the other hand, might use this moment to finally step fully out of her mother's shadow, especially now that Bertha is distracted by problems of her own. Either way, Season 4 is not just bringing back familiar faces, it is bringing back a family that is one bad decision away from completely falling apart. And Larry and Gladys Russell might be the only two people capable of stopping it, If season 3 taught fans anything, it is that Bertha Russell's ambition never actually stops. Even when everything around her is falling apart, she has spent years learning that in New York society, weakness is never forgiven. And the moment people sense a crack in your foundation, they will use it against you without hesitation. That is exactly why George and Bertha's marriage crisis matters so much heading into season 4. It is not just a personal problem happening behind closed doors. It is a potential weapon that Agnes Van Ryn and the rest of old money New York could use to finally push the Russells back down the social ladder they work so hard to climb. Bertha knows this better than anyone, which means she is not going to sit quietly and let her marriage collapse without a fight. But fighting for her marriage and fighting for her social position may no longer be the same battle. And that is the real tension season 4 seems ready to explore. This is where Larry Russell becomes far more important than fans might expect. Harry Richardson's character has always represented a version of the Russell family that does not rely purely on money or manipulation to get ahead. Larry has been trying to build something real, a career in architecture that stands on its own, separate from his mother's constant need for control. But if Bertha and George's marriage becomes public knowledge, and in a world built on gossip and appearances, it almost always does, Larry could be forced into a position he never wanted. He may have to publicly defend his family's reputation while privately watching his parents fall apart. And that kind of pressure could push him toward decisions that conflict with the quiet, steady path he has tried to walk so far. Season 4 could test whether Larry is capable of protecting the Russell name without becoming just as ruthless as the parents he has tried so hard not to become. Gladys Russell's situation carries a very different kind of weight. Tessa Farmiga's character spent years being shaped entirely by her mother's ambitions, pushed into a marriage and a lifestyle that served Bertha's social goals more than Gladys's own happiness. When Gladys finally started asserting herself, it created real distance between her and Bertha, distance that has not fully closed. Now, with Bertha possibly losing control over her own marriage, there is a real possibility she turns her attention back toward Gladys, trying to regain the sense of control she is losing everywhere else. That could mean new pressure on Gladys's marriage, her social choices, or even her relationship with her own children. Season 4 might force Gladys to decide, once and for all, whether she is willing to let her mother back into her life on Bertha's terms, or whether she continues down the independent path she fought so hard to create for herself. What ties both of these storylines together is the idea the official synopsis hints at directly, that people in this new era need to be careful what they wish for. Bertha wished for power, respect, and a place at the top of New York society, and she got all of it. But now the cost of that wish is threatening the one relationship that made her rise possible in the first place, her marriage to George. Larry and Gladys, whether they realize it or not, are living examples of that cost. They grew up watching their mother sacrifice almost everything for status, and now they may be the ones left holding the pieces if that sacrifice finally becomes too much for the marriage to survive. Season 4 seems positioned to ask a very simple but painful question. Was it all worth it? And if it was not, who ends up paying the real price for Bertha Russell's ambition? There is a reason so many fans keep going back to rewatch the moment George and Bertha Russell's marriage started cracking in season 3. And it is not simply because it was dramatic. It is because the show spent 3 full seasons convincing everyone that these two were unshakable, a team built on ambition, strategy, and a shared understanding that nothing, not even love, mattered more than protecting what they built together. That is exactly what makes season 4 feel so dangerous. If a marriage that's strong can start falling apart, then nothing about the Russell family's future is actually guaranteed anymore. And that uncertainty is going to ripple out to every single person connected to them, especially their children. Harry Richardson's Larry Russell has always occupied a strange position within his own family. He is George's son, but he does not carry his father's cold, calculated approach to business and reputation. He is Bertha's son too, but he does not chase status the way she does either. Instead, Larry has spent 3 seasons trying to prove that a Russell can succeed without becoming consumed by the same hunger that drives his parents. His architecture career has been slow and steady, built on genuine skill rather than his family's money or influence. And that has made him one of the more grounded characters in a show filled with people constantly reaching for more than they already have. But grounded characters are often the ones who get pulled into chaos the hardest, because they are the ones everyone assumes will hold things together when the situation gets worse. If Bertha and George's marriage genuinely reaches a breaking point in season 4, Larry may not have the luxury of staying on the sidelines anymore. In New York society during this era, family problems were never truly private. They were currency, something rivals could use to weaken a family's standing overnight. Agnes Van Ryn understands this better than almost anyone, and if she senses an opportunity to use the Russells' marital troubles against them, she will not hesitate. That puts Larry in an incredibly difficult position. He may be forced to publicly defend a version of his parents' marriage that he privately knows is falling apart, all while trying to maintain the respectable image that his own career depends on. The tension between his private knowledge and his public responsibility could easily become one of the most compelling parts of his storyline this season, especially if it starts affecting his own relationships and reputation outside of the family home. There is also the question of loyalty, something the Gilded Age has always treated as complicated rather than simple. If George and Bertha's marriage does collapse, Larry may be forced to choose a side, even if he does not want to. Does he stand behind his father, whose business instincts built the family fortune in the first place? Or does he support his mother, whose relentless ambition pushed the family into social territory his father could never have reached alone? Neither choice is easy, and either one risks damaging his relationship with one parent while trying to protect the other. Season 4 could use this exact tension to explore just how much pressure a seemingly stable character like Larry can withstand before his carefully built independence starts to crack. Under the weight of his family's chaos, Tessa, Pharmacus Gladys Russell, finds herself in a different but equally difficult position. Gladys already knows what it feels like to be shaped entirely by Bertha's ambitions, having spent years being pushed toward a marriage and a lifestyle designed more for her mother's social climbing than her own happiness. When Gladys finally began asserting control over her own life, it created a real rift between her and Bertha, one that has never been fully repaired. Now, with Bertha possibly facing the collapse of her marriage to George, there is a strong possibility that she turns her focus back onto Gladys, either out of genuine need for connection or, more likely, out of a desperate attempt to regain control somewhere in her life after losing it elsewhere. That kind of pressure could reignite old wounds between mother and daughter, just as Gladys was finally finding her footing as an independent woman within her own household. What makes this especially interesting is how differently Larry and Gladys might respond to the exact same crisis. Larry, as the son trying to build his own legacy, may lean toward trying to fix things quietly, working behind the scenes to protect the family's reputation without drawing attention to the cracks forming underneath. Gladys, on the other hand, having already fought once for her independence, may be far less willing to simply absorb her mother's chaos a second time. If Bertha tries to tighten her grip on Gladys the way she once did before, Gladys may push back harder than ever, refusing to let her own marriage and household become another casualty of her mother's need for control. That contrast between Larry's quiet diplomacy and Gladys's renewed defiance could become one of the most compelling sibling dynamics the show has explored so far, especially if they're parents. Marriage becomes the breaking point that finally forces both of them to define who they really are outside of Bertha and George's shadow. The official synopsis for season 4 already hints that Bertha paid a heavy price for everything she built, and that the entire Russell family now has to live with the consequences of her ambition. That single sentence carries enormous weight when applied to Larry and Gladys specifically. They did not choose the sacrifices their mother made to reach the top of New York society, yet they may be the ones forced to deal with the fallout most directly. If George and Bertha's marriage truly falls apart, it will not just be a personal loss for the two of them. It will be a structural collapse at the center of the entire Russell family. And Larry and Gladys will have to decide how to rebuild their own identities in the aftermath. Whether that means stepping up to protect the family name, stepping back to protect themselves, or trying to find some impossible balance between the two, there's also a broader question hiding underneath all of this. One that ties directly into the synopsis's warning about being careful what you wish for. Bertha wished for a place among New York's most powerful families, and she achieved exactly that. But that wish came at the cost of a marriage that once seemed unbreakable, and now her children may be forced to watch that cost play out in real time. Larry and Gladys represent two very different reactions to growing up under that kind of relentless ambition. One choosing quiet independence through his own career, the other choosing defiant independence through reclaiming control of her own life. Season 4 seems perfectly positioned to test both of those reactions against the ultimate crisis their parents' marriage now represents, and depending on how far things go, the choices Larry and Gladys make this season could end up shaping the entire future of the Russell family long after Bertha and George's story reaches its own conclusion. One of the most overlooked details in the official Season 4 synopsis is how much emphasis it places on consequences rather than victories. For 3 seasons, the Gilded Age has mostly followed Bertha Russell winning, whether that meant securing an opera box, forcing her way into Mrs. Astor's inner circle, or arranging a marriage that elevated her daughter's social standing. But Season 4 seems ready to flip that entire formula. Instead of showing Bertha climb higher, it appears determined to show what happens